Stop. Before you mail that check to the lawn company this spring, walk out and look at your yard. Look at that little plastic flag the treatment crew jabbed into your grass last year. Look at that half-empty bag of weed and feed slumped in the corner of your garage. You've been paying good money for something the Amish families out here have done for almost nothing, quietly, for longer than anyone can remember. And I'm going to hand it to you today. It's a single powder. You get it at a feed mill. It runs about $15 a bag. It stops crabgrass before it ever breaks the surface, and it feeds your lawn a deep green at the very same time. One thing. 2 jobs. And the big chemical brands have no reason in the world to point you toward it. Stay with me. Because in a few minutes I'll show you the exact week you have to put it down, miss that window by 10 days, and it does absolutely nothing. And I'll tell you the one situation where this trick will quietly wreck your lawn if nobody warns you first. My name is Dale Brubaker. I'm 71 years old, and I've lived my whole life right here in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, just outside a little town called Bird in Hand. My wife Ruth and I have been on the same 3 acres for 43 years. And for 18 of those years, I did the thing most of you are doing right now. I paid a national lawn service to drive a truck up my lane 4 or 5 times a season and spray my grass. Roughly $500 a year, some years closer to $600. I thought that was just the cost of having a decent yard. Then one April, I was leaning on the fence talking to my neighbor, Amos King. Amos is old order Amish, no truck, no spray rig, no service calls. And his lawn, I'm telling you, his lawn was thicker and greener than mine, and I was the one writing checks. So I asked him straight out, what in the world are you putting on that grass? He kind of smiled the way Amos does, and he said, same thing, I feed the calves, Dale. Now, let me tell you who's really been profiting off your confusion all these years. The lawn treatment industry in this country pulls in billions of dollars, and it's built on one simple idea that your yard is too complicated for you to handle yourself. That you need a licensed technician, a proprietary blend, a 4-step program with a spring application and a summer application and a fall application, each one its own invoice. They want you to believe the green grass is in the truck. It isn't. Most of what they're selling you is 2 things: a pre-emergent that stops weed seeds and nitrogen that greens up the blades. That's the heart of it. And here's what they will never volunteer. There is a plain agricultural powder that does both of those jobs at once, and it's been sitting in feed stores the whole time. It's called corn gluten meal. Now, don't picture some fancy garden product. Corn gluten meal is a byproduct. When they mill corn down for starch and syrup, what's left over is this golden, protein-rich meal. For 100 years, it's been bagged up and sold as livestock feed, chicken feed, cattle feed. It's what Amos meant when he said he feeds it to the calves. It's been hiding in plain sight on a farm shelf this entire time. And the reason it works on your lawn isn't folklore. It's documented research. Back in 1991, a turfgrass scientist named Dr. Nick Christians at Iowa State University was running experiments, and he stumbled onto something by accident. He noticed that in plots where corn gluten meal had been spread, grass seed wasn't sprouting the way it should. Most people would have thrown that out as a failed test. He didn't. He looked closer, and he realized corn gluten meal was stopping seeds from forming roots. Iowa State took that discovery and patented corn gluten meal as the first natural pre-emergent weed control. A real patent, a real land-grant university, real repeatable science. Not a story somebody's grandfather told at a feed counter. So let me explain exactly why it works, because once you understand it, you'll never look at a bag of weed and feed the same way again. When a crabgrass seed or a dandelion seed or any weed seed sits in your soil and gets warm and damp, the first thing it does is push out a tiny root. That little root is everything. It's how the baby plant drinks. It's how it anchors. If that first root takes hold, you've got a weed. Corn gluten meal interrupts that exact moment. There are certain proteins in the meal that stop that first root from developing properly. The seed still tries to sprout, but it can't make a working root. And then if the soil dries out even a little, that helpless sprout simply withers and dies before it ever sees daylight. It never becomes a weed you have to look at. It dies underground. That's the whole trick. You're not poisoning anything. You're not spraying a chemical that drifts onto your tomatoes or worries you about the grandkids playing barefoot. You're using a corn protein to keep weed seeds from ever getting a foothold. But here's the part that makes it twice as good as anything in that lawn service truck. Corn gluten meal is about 10% nitrogen by weight. Nitrogen is the exact nutrient that turns grass deep green and makes it grow thick. So while it's underground stopping weed seeds, it's also slowly feeding your established grass a steady meal of nitrogen. The lawn company charges you for a weed step and then charges you again for a feed step. Corn Gluten does both in one pass out of one $15 bag. And that's exactly the kind of knowledge that deserves to go deeper, which is why I want to take one quick moment to tell you about something I put together for folks like you. Over the past few years, I've collected everything Amos and his neighbors taught me, the planting rhythms, the pest fixes, the garden methods that cost almost nothing, and I wrote it all down in a set of guides called the Amish Garden Guide, the Amish Pest Blueprint, and the Complete Amish Garden Field Edition. It's the full picture, not just the lawn. If you want to carry all of it with you season by season, crop by crop, you can find it linked in the description for $120, and it'll pay for itself the first time you skip a service call. Now, back to the part I promised you the exact timing, and the one situation where this whole thing can quietly go wrong. Now, let me give you the exact way to use it, because this is where most folks get it wrong and then tell everybody it doesn't work. Timing is everything. Corn gluten stops seeds from rooting, so it has to already be on the ground before the weed seeds wake up. For crabgrass, that means early spring when the soil is just starting to warm. The old-timers around here don't use a calendar. They watch the forsythia, those bright yellow bushes that bloom early. When the forsythia flowers open up, the soil's hitting around 55 degrees, and that's your signal. That's the week. If you wait until you can see crabgrass in the lawn, you've already missed it by a month. How much? Spread it at about 20 pounds for every 1,000 square feet of lawn. Put it down, then water it in lightly so it settles into the soil. But here's the catch. Most people skip after you water it in. You want a few dry days. Remember, the magic is that the weed sprout withers without a root. If it rains and rains for a week straight, those crippled little sprouts get enough moisture to limp along. A dry spell after application is what finishes them off. Then you do it again in early fall. Spring stops the summer weeds. Fall stops the winter weeds and feeds the roots going into the cold. 2 applications. Most years, that's your whole program. Now, I promised you honesty, and this is where a lot of these videos lie to you, so let me be the neighbor who tells you the truth. Corn gluten meal does not kill weeds you already have. Let me say that again because it matters. If you've got dandelions standing in your yard right now, big and yellow, corn gluten will not touch them. It only stops new seeds from rooting. It's a prevention, not a cure. If your lawn is already full of established weeds, you'll need to dig those out or deal with them another way first, and then use the corn gluten to stop the next generation from ever coming up. And it is not instant. The first year, you might only see it knock back 20 or 30% of your weeds. But Dr. Christian's own research showed that the effect builds. Year 2 is better. By year 3, with consistent spring and fall applications, you can see weed reduction up around 80-90% because you've stopped seed after seed after seed from ever establishing. The lawn company wants a result you can see by next Tuesday, so you renew the contract. Nature works on a slower, more honest schedule. And let me tell you plainly when you should still pick up the phone and pay a professional. Because sometimes that cost is real and it's necessary. If your soil is so compacted that water just sits on top and runs off, corn gluten won't fix that. You need aeration. If you've got a true infestation, grubs eating the roots out from under whole sections of lawn, or a fungal disease spreading in brown rings, that's a different fight, and a good local turf specialist earns every dollar. A real soil test from your county extension office runs about $15 to $20 and tells you what you're actually missing. And a full professional renovation of a badly damaged lawn can run you $800, $1,000 or more. That's real money for real work, and there are yards that need it. What I'm against isn't spending money when you have to. I'm against paying $500 a year, every year, for 2 basic jobs. A $15 bag does just as well on a healthy, established lawn. That's the waste. That's the part they're counting on you never figuring out. Now, here's the one warning I told you I'd give you, and please don't skip this, because it's the mistake that makes people furious. Corn gluten meal does not know the difference between a weed seed and your grass seed. It stops all seeds from rooting. So if you are planning to seed your lawn, overseed a thin spot, patch a bare area, put down new grass seed in spring or fall, do not use corn gluten anywhere near that for at least 6 weeks before and after. If you spread corn, gluten, and then throw down grass seed, you've just paid to keep your own grass from growing. That's the number one way people ruin this. Weed prevention and new seeding cannot happen in the same spot at the same time. Pick one. One more honest note, since I've got animals on the brain, corn gluten is animal feed, so it's safe around dogs and barefoot grandkids. That's the beauty of it. But because it smells like feed, some dogs will try to eat it right off the lawn. Little won't hurt them. It's literally food, but a dog that gulps down a big pile of any rich meal can get a stomachache. So put it down, water it in, and you're fine. Just don't leave the open bag sitting where the dog sleeps. Now maybe you're sitting there thinking, Dale, that's fine for you with your 3 acres out in farm country, but my situation's different. Let me speak to that, because I don't want a single one of you walking away thinking this doesn't fit your yard. Maybe you've got a brand new lawn, freshly sodded or seeded. Then, like I just said, hold off on the corn gluten until that grass is well established, mowed a few times, and then start your spring and fall rhythm the following season. You're not left out. You're just waiting your turn. Maybe you've got an old, tired, established lawn full of weeds, the kind that's been neglected a few years. That's actually the most common yard in America, and it's the one I want most. Here's your weekend plan. Walk it this Saturday. Dig or pull the big established weeds. You can see the dandelions, the plantain, by hand or with a cheap stand-up weed puller. Then the very next dry week, when your forsythia or your neighbor's forsythia starts to bloom, spread your first round of corn gluten at 20 pounds per 1,000 square feet. You won't fix 3 years of neglect in one weekend, but you will stop this year's seed bomb from going off, and you'll feed what grass you do have. By next spring, you'll already see the difference. Maybe you're in an apartment with a tiny patch, or you keep a few raised beds. Corn gluten works in garden beds too, around your established vegetable plants and flowers. To keep weed seeds down, just remember the same rule. Never where you're about to plant from seed. Sprinkle it around your tomato transplants, not over a row you just seeded with carrots. There's no yard this doesn't reach. New, old, big, small, weedy, or just thin and hungry. The powder's the same, only the timing changes. I'll tell you the moment it really hit me. It was 3 springs back. Amos, King's youngest boy, came over to help me move some fence posts, and he saw me reading the back of one of those expensive bags I still had in the garage. He couldn't have been more than 14. He looked at the price on the receipt, stapled to it, and he just said, real quiet and polite, we get a 50-pound sack at the mill for less than that. 14 years old, and he already knew what 18 years of invoices never taught me. That's the thing about this knowledge. It was never lost. It never disappeared. The Amish never stopped using it. The feed mills never stopped selling it. And the university research has been sitting there in plain English since before some of your kids were born. It only went missing for the rest of us. It got buried slowly under glossy bags and 4-step programs and a truck in the driveway until we forgot we ever knew how to feed our own grass. You didn't lose this because it stopped working. You lost it because somebody figured out how to sell it back to you. So here's what I want you to do. This is the whole plan, and it's simple. Watch for the forsythia. Spread corn gluten meal at 20 pounds per 1,000 square feet. Water it in light, then let it dry. Pull your big visible weeds by hand. Do it again in early fall. Skip the corn gluten anywhere you're putting down new seed. And give it 2 or 3 seasons to build the way the real research says it will. That's it. That's the program that costs you maybe $30 a year instead of $500. If you've spent years writing those checks like I did, this isn't just about saving money, though Lord knows you'll save plenty. It's about being the kind of person who refuses to keep overpaying for what a corn protein and a little patience already do for free. The kind of person who feeds their own grass. Now I want to hear from you, and this matters because timing changes with where you live. Tell me in the comments what state you're in or your growing zone if you know it. That forsythia signal comes weeks apart between Georgia and Minnesota, and if you'll tell me where you are, the folks reading can help each other nail the right week. So drop your state down below right now. Just the name of your state. Don't be shy. That's how we figure this out together. And if a 71-year-old man from Bird in Hand just saved you $500 a year, think about sticking around. This isn't a channel so much as a bunch of us slowly taking back the simple stuff we were talked out of knowing. Folks who'd rather use what's already in the barn than what's advertised on television. Because next time, I'm going to show you the other thing Amos let slip over that fence, a free way to fix a lawn that pools and puddles and stays soggy after every rain, with nothing but a garden fork and one ingredient you've already got under your kitchen sink. No drainage contractor, no regrading. I'll see you then.